Shane Beamer says Neyland Stadium was the loudest stadium that he played in last year. All right. We like making fun of Shane Beamer, but we're actually not going to do that. I ask you in the message board, and then I want to turn this into a poll question. What's the loudest that Neyland Stadium has ever been in your lifetime? Mine, it's undoubtedly the 98 Florida game. And I've talked to Philip Fulmer about this. He thinks that they may have had some people that started jet engines outside the stadium. He literally is not sure, but he's heard that rumor. It was bizarre loud, like a little scary loud. Like if there are any structural defects in the press box side of Neyland Stadium, I'm scared that type of loud. So that would be mine. I imagine a lot of people would have Alabama 2022. Caleb, when do you think that Neyland Stadium's been the loudest? And then we'll turn to our message board and get some thoughts there.
So my brother would probably say the 2004 Florida game where James Wilhoit kicked the field goal to beat them after missing the extra point, the 50-yarder. Tennessee really owes Dallas Baker a lot of roses for that one. that personal foul penalty that should not have been called. But yeah. So I think my brother would say that one, and I heard it was really loud. I wasn't there. For me, actually,
I was there for that one. What year was that? Help me.
04 Florida.
Can I tell you the funniest part about that story is, and I'm sorry if I've told you this before, but after Will Hoyt hit that kick, he'd missed an extra point to tie it. We all know that. And I saw his parents, and their emotional swing had them like giddy. Like they couldn't even speak. It was just constant giggling that somehow they pulled that out of the fire. It was one of the neatest things to see. That I couldn't even interview them to talk about how big of a moment it was because they were just giggling the whole time. It's a great family. But anyway,
also, I want to throw another thing in it because we rag on him a good bit on this show, but that actually was that was Fulmer at his best because Will Hoyt missed the extra point and everybody was mad. And Philip Fulmer pulled Will Hoyt to the side and said, "James, we're going to give you a shot to win this for us. You're going to get another chance. Don't worry." And I don't know if anybody could psychologically get a kicker right to make another field goal after that the way Philip Fulmer could. So I give him credit for that. I would say, for me personally, the loudest I witnessed, it's actually in a loss. Do you remember when Tennessee played LSU in 2006 and Jonathan Crompton filled in for Eric Ainge? And he threw that touchdown pass to Robert Meacham late in the game that put them ahead. I remember the stadium exploding in that moment. And then Jamarcus Russell led a game-winning drive to win. But I thought when Robert Meacham caught that touchdown, that was loud. 2 weeks earlier, another loud one was when Arian Foster scored the game-winning touchdown for Tennessee to beat Alabama against Mike Shula's Alabama, which would be Tennessee's last win against Alabama until 2022.
Several people are throwing out some possible nominations on board. My nominations now on the YouTube page, if you want to vote, are 2004 Florida. That was the James Wilhoit game. 1998 Florida. 2022 Alabama. And then I was going to go other. No offense, but I'm not going to put a loss on here, Caleb.
No, I understand. I wouldn't expect you to. I think y'all's two are louder. I didn't experience 98 and 04 Florida. I experienced 2006 LSU. That's why I threw that one out there. We're named, but I agree. I think those are the loudest. 04 and 98, I would think, would be the loudest ones. Also, let's be honest, Dave, since they've expanded Neyland Stadium, and this started during the Casey Clausen years, Tennessee had a weird run where all their quality wins were on the road. So they didn't actually get a chance for the stadium to be loud because they oftentimes struggled for some reason at home against elite teams. Remember, I don't think Casey Clausen beat a top 10 team at home his entire time at Tennessee. He was a road warrior, but he wasn't a home warrior.
No, and that was interesting why Casey was so much better on the road. Neyland Stadium is an incredible home field advantage, and Shane Beamer saying Neyland was the loudest last year doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And that was also a revenge game. So when you look at the games this year on Tennessee's home schedule, what do you think might be the loudest of the group? Because South Carolina had some backstory to it because of what happened in 2022, the Columbia collapse.
Well, yeah, it actually was threefold. It was the backstory of South Carolina. Cooper Mays was back that day after being off all week or off all season, and Tennessee was honoring the '98 national championship team, and they donned the black jerseys. And just the
Right.
combination, they just weren't gonna. They were, and remember, you told me the week of, you said Tennessee is going to cover whatever spread Vegas sets, and I'll never forget you telling me that, and they did. And Vegas set a pretty high spread that shocked a lot of people. I think this year, I think you're going to see Alabama be loud again. I think Florida could be a very loud game because I do think Florida's a revenge game this year. I think Tennessee, and it's all the times they've lost to Florida over the past 20 to 25 years. I think last year is the one that angers them maybe the most because they just knew they were the better team last year.
Boy, I have trouble ranking those Florida losses. I mean, there's so many where Tennessee fans have gone into it thinking, hey, this is a cinch win, more than they should have. But last year was pretty painful. So I would rank it right up there. But, I go back to the Peyton Manning days when they fell down 35-0. You would think.
But that team won a national title for Florida, so you give them a break.
No, that's true. You have Florida Neyland Stadium, you have Alabama Neyland Stadium, Kentucky in Neyland Stadium, Mississippi State Neyland Stadium, and then you have UTEP, you have Chattanooga, they're playing in Charlotte, as we know. You have Kent State at home, and I wouldn't expect it to be loud for one of the smaller opponents, but I think it's pretty much down to Florida and Alabama, and I think Alabama will be louder if Tennessee beats Florida, which will be the loudest to that point.
Yeah, I could see that. It depends on how. I mean, we still think Alabama will be good, and I think here's the funny part. I think there will be a lot of excitement for the Alabama game because I think this is the first time Tennessee fans will go win, not just thinking. I mean, 2022 felt good, but there was just a little hope that they could maybe make it competitive. This is the first time Tennessee's going in probably thinking, oh, we're not totally outmatched by this Nick Saban guy on the other side. We're like, we have to hope for a miracle to be in the game. An underrated time Neyland is loud, by the way, Dave, and I've told you guys this. October in Knoxville is the best setting in college football. And I think one of the tragedies of this year's schedule, they don't have a home game the weekend before Halloween. I always love when Tennessee has a home game at night the weekend before Halloween or the weekend of Halloween because the vibe is just so perfect. Like 2009 when Tennessee donned the black jerseys that you hated with Lane Kiffin.
Right. They look bad close up. I guess they didn't look quite as bad from afar.
The stadium, tell me the stadium wasn't lit though during that time.
Yeah, there were a few of the older sections, and I mentioned this to you before, that got up and walked out, but it was a very small minority. Really made the players mad, by the way.
Really? Well, those older fans don't even know history because Tennessee's original jerseys were black.
Were black, yes. I try to say that every day on the radio. I think I even wrote that. But I think the way they did all that made it incredibly loud. Now, my question is, Tennessee, how much more of an advantage do they have at Neyland Stadium when they're playing at night as opposed to the middle of the day? Because now you have that flex scheduling. So just to give you for instance, the Florida game could be 3:30 to 4:30 or 6 to 8. The Alabama game could be 3:30 to 4:30 or 6 to 8. Night games are a lot louder. I would think you would want to flex into that nighttime slot. It doesn't make it better for us, and I've heard from a lot of fans it doesn't make it better for them. But isn't Neyland Stadium loudest at night?
See, this is one of the advantages, I think, of Neyland Stadium. No. I think if it's a noon game, yes. I don't know many stadiums that are really loud for noon games in the South. Now, you go to the Big Ten environments, I will say, Dave, a Wisconsin game at noon might be the loudest place in the country, quite honestly. But the SEC, they prefer it later. But I do think Neyland's best setting is the mid-afternoon game. Because you forget, it's evening when the game ends. So by the fourth quarter, it is night and it's loud. I actually think that, and I think it's psychological, but I think the setting of Neyland mid-afternoon allows that stadium to get louder than most stadiums do in the mid-afternoon. Now at night, LSU and Florida beat them. They do.
Fair. Other than a trip to Arkansas, How beneficial is it that Tennessee will be at home? Florida, October 12th, Alabama, October the 19th, Kentucky, November the 2nd, Mississippi State, November the 9th. I mean, they will be at home for a month before they play Georgia. How big of an advantage is that?
Well, I don't know how much of an advantage being at home is, as much as it is they're at home for 4 games and they get a week off in between. But I do think that can lull you into a false sense of security to a certain degree. Particularly, I've told you, like when you come back from that Alabama game after you have a bye, Kentucky and Mississippi State are 2 dangerous teams. Now, I get it. People like to pattern match and they say, or create patterns out of things, and they say Tennessee always beats Kentucky. And you're right, Tennessee always beats Kentucky. But that doesn't mean that that's not a dangerous game if you don't take it seriously. And Dave, you covered some Tennessee teams that even though they always beat Kentucky, where Kentucky put up a real fight against them. And that becomes a problem.
Kentucky would always play Tennessee tough, and they're going to continue to do so. It's absolutely monstrous for them to be able to win that game.